What is going on, Raider Nation? It's your boy Sanjit back at it with another video. Today we are going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders 2025 NFL Draft, and we're going to be honest about this. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat what I think about this draft, some of the players that we took, some of the guys we took, and where we took them as well. I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys, man, and I'm excited to get into this because although there are some picks that I do not like at all, there's others that I absolutely love, and we're going to start right away. Talking about the first pick that the Raiders had. So the Raiders with the 6th overall pick took running back Ashton Genty. Love the pick, man. I don't care that he's a running back. Truth be told, I'm 31 years old right now. If Ashton Genty plays for 7 to 8 years, which I think he'll play, I'll be almost 40, right? That's a long time. And the thing is the Raiders are going to get a great running back for a really, really long time. And I understand running backs don't last 15 years the way some positions might. Maybe not 15, but 12 years the way a specific position might. But Ashton Genty is going to be a bona fide star, right? Like, he's pretty much a can't-miss prospect. Now, is he going to be Adrian Peterson? Is he going to be Saquon Barkley? Is he going to be that level of player? I don't know, but he'll be as good as Nick Chubb at the very, very minimum. And Nick Chubb's a great running back, had a lot of success. I think Genty will do it for a really long time. But I think the big thing for the Raiders is you're sending that message that we're looking to win today. Not tomorrow, not the year after that, or 2 years after that, but today. And I think for the Raiders, that's the message you have to continuously send. Some people are concerned about his height, right? He's listed at 5'8.5". Understandably, but this guy's also built differently. And I would also state this, Ashton Genty in college did prove that he can handle 350 carries in the season, right? Now, taking a step back, he'll never have 350 carries for the Raiders, in my opinion. I think you want to give this guy 250 combined touches and try to keep him here long term, right? Let's not overutilize a guy like Ashton Genty in any given season. Try to extend that season out. This guy's a playmaker, and we're going to find that out pretty much right away. I think he'll be a top 10 running back his rookie year. I think he'll be a top 5 running back his second year. And then hopefully by year 3, he's like one of the top 2 or 3 guys, right? So, again, understandable it's a running back, but I actually really, really like this pick. And I don't want to spend too much time on Ashton Genty because I love the pick, man. There's just no way you can hate the Ashton Genty pick. But that's where things kind of start to get interesting a little bit, right? The Raiders then followed it up taking Jack Bech, 58th overall pick. Obviously, everybody knows kind of what happened, right? The Raiders had, I believe it was the 38th overall pick. They initially traded it back. They went back about 10 picks, picked up an extra 3rd round pick. And they went back another 10 picks, and I think they ended up picking up an extra 4th round pick at that point. So you trade back, and you take Jack Bech. And, I don't hate the Jack Bech pick. I think it's a good wide receiver that has the potential to be great, has the potential to be productive. People have compared him to, like, Puka Nacua. I compared him to a guy like Cooper Kupp. He's a little bit shorter, I think, than Cooper Kupp, but he's a wide receiver that can get out there and line up on the line of scrimmage. He can get pressed, and he'll beat the press coverage. Now, he might not be the most explosive, the most, the quickest, right? He might not have the best athletic profile, but, sometimes you don't need to be super, super athletic, right, to be a good wide receiver. Like, T. Higgins is not super athletic, and I'm not saying this is T. Higgins, but, a wide receiver can have success without just being athletic, right? You can have success by running good routes. Now, I'll be the first to tell you guys, if the Raiders were going to go wide receiver, I personally would have went a different direction. You guys know how I felt about multiple receivers, right? Luther Burden, as an example, is a guy I personally really liked. He was on the board if the Raiders wanted him at that point. Kyle Williams ended up going, I think, like 12 picks after Jack Bech. He was another guy that I personally really, really liked. To me, I understand why the Raiders went with Bech. But it makes less sense once you look at the next wide receiver that they took, which we'll obviously get to at some point. I'm not, my eye for wide receivers is not like super high. This guy's a good wide receiver. Get it. He has upside. He has potential. But unless he ends up being like, even better than Jacoby Myers, right? I think it's a bad pick. He has to be better than Jacoby Myers. Let's just put it like that, right? He has to be a 1,000-yard receiver. By like year 3 or 4. We'll see if he can get there. Obviously, it's a pick that John Spytek liked, right? He wouldn't have taken this wide receiver without knowing that, hey, we think this guy could be a really good wide receiver. And I will also state this, if you go to the Senior Bowl and you dominate the Senior Bowl, which he definitely did, that's a really, really, really positive sign, right? I think he was the MVP of the actual game. Not the practice week, but the actual game. And to me, that's still I hold that at a high regard, right? Especially given, quarterbacks kind of go up and down, right? If you're playing with Joe Burrow versus if you're playing with like Bo Nix, it might be a little bit different, right? No hate on Bo Nix. But Jack Bech is a pick that I don't absolutely love given some of the other players that were kind of available. And we'll see how this one plays out. When I give you guys my opinions, just keep in mind they're my opinions. I'm not right 100% of the time, right? I'm not, I'm just not, right? But with that, I also want to throw this out there. People are going to respond to this video because I am going to be critical of some of these picks. People are going to say, hey, you create content, you talk football on the internet. You're not in the building, right? You don't know more than a guy like Sean Spytek. And that might be true, right? But I also want to remind people, the Raiders at this point, if you go back to when Al Davis passed away, I think it was 2010, 2011. When Al Davis passed away, from that point, the Raiders have had like 5 or 6 different general managers. It's been like 15 years, right? And we've had 5 or 6 different general managers. That's because general managers aren't good, right? A lot of them are not good, right? And truth be told, I look at some of what some of these other teams did, and if you guys have watched my content, you guys know that some of the players that I personally really liked were taken by some of the best teams out there in the NFL, right? Like, for example, the Baltimore Ravens, they've had the same general manager since I think like 2019. Before that, they had the same general manager for like 20 years, and this team's been good for really, really, really long. And I love some of the picks that these guys had, right? Like, I picked 59. This is value. Mike Green went 1 pick after Jack Bech, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, Mike Green's going to be a top 10 edge player in the NFL. I understand the character concerns, but we did the same thing with the Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson pick, and we see how that turned out. Right? Sometimes you got to be able to bring these guys in, and they're getting all this hate. People are critical of them. Talk to them. See if, get their side of things, and see if you think you can actually, potentially fix it. Because the Eagles and the Ravens have done this now with Jalen Carter, and now the Ravens with Mike Green. And to me, I'm not saying the Raiders should have taken Mike Green over Bech. I understand the need element of things as well. But it's not even just Mike Green, right? Like, the Ravens did a phenomenal job with Pebbles late in the round. The Eagles, right? The Bills, we'll look at them first. They took some guys that I really liked. Landon Jackson was a guy I loved. I wanted the Raiders to take this guy. Deion Walker's a guy that I loved. I wanted the Raiders to take this guy, right? And these guys ended up going to the Bills. And the Bills are a good organization, right? They drafted well. Their general manager's been there since 2017. And he's kept his job because they're a good team. Chase Lunt out of a Yukon tackle, really liked his tape as well. The Eagles are another team that drafted well, right? Love the Texas safety coming out. That was a high pick, but the 4th round Ty Robinson's a phenomenal pick in my opinion. That's a 10-year starter at D tackle right there. I don't know why he went so late, but like, here's another guy, right? That if you wanted a guy that's going to be a really, really good player, that's the D tackle to take. The Raiders took 2 D tackles in the 4th round, which we'll talk about. Ty Robinson's better than both of them, right? And it's not close. You can look at a guy like Cameron Williams who fell. Maybe he came out too early, but this could be their starting right tackle long term, right? Like, to me, what the Raiders did with their picks, some of these guys, again, we're going to get into it, and I'm going to be critical of some of these picks. But just to kind of, come back to it and kind of get back into this. People are going to say, what makes you critical of some of these picks? Remember, the Raiders took Tyree Wilson over Jalen Carter. In fact, if you guys just go back to the 2023 draft of the Raiders, this was arguably one of the worst drafts I've ever seen. Like, I don't know if we have a starter out of this draft. Literally. Maybe Jacorian Bennett can be a long-term starter. He's shown upside. But every other guy has already either been replaced or they're going to be replaced, right? Trey Tucker was another guy that had some upside. He may have actually gotten replaced this year, right? To me, this was a general manager in the NFL that had this draft. And we can go back for years. And I'm not saying that I don't think Jack Bech will work out, right? I don't know, right? We'll see how it kind of translates as he gets to the Raiders. I think he will be a good wide receiver. I think Chip Kelly's a good offensive coordinator. But a pick that I actually really, really like, and I'm not going to lie to you guys on this one, is going to be our 3rd round pick. To me, I think the Raiders hit on this one. And let's talk about what Darien Porter brings to the Las Vegas Raiders. This is, and I'm not saying this just to say this. I started watching this guy's tape thoroughly this morning, and this guy has it, man. I am confident this guy's going to be a really, really good football player. I watched Porter a little bit a while back, long time back. And, I didn't think at that time, like, hey, this guy's going to be a first round pick necessarily. But watching him more thoroughly now, right, when you're watching 300-400 snaps, you start to see patterns. This guy's 6'3". I want you guys to keep that in mind, right? 6'3", long as hell, right? His arm's 33 1/8 inch. That's longer than Will Campbell, right? Will Campbell is going to be a starting tackle potentially for the Patriots. This guy has longer arms than a starting caliber tackle. He's 6'3". He is on the lighter side, but he runs a 4.3 40-yard dash, and you see it on tape, man. This guy is going to be really, really good. Now, it will be interesting because, according to Pro Football Focus, this guy's only a good zone corner. He's not good in man, right? According to Pro Football Focus, he's in the top 5 as a zone corner. He's in like the bottom, 15% as a man corner. I think PFF grades are sometimes wrong, and I think that's a great example of it. This guy's good in man coverage. He has really, really, really good fluid hips. And it's kind of crazy because when you're 6'3", you don't generally have the fluidity, right? This guy is legitimately built differently, right? And I don't say that just to say it. We have guys like Jeremy Chin, who's 6'3", Isaiah Polamau, who's 6'4.5". Those guys are not fluid at all, right? Those guys lack that fluidity. And when I say fluidity, what I mean is your hips, right? As a corner, if you're backpedaling angled to the left, there's a wide receiver to the side, and the wide receiver hits an in-breaking route, you got to flip your hips, right? You got to have that hip fluidity to be able to flip your hips. Not every corner has that. And if you're at 6'3", 99% of these guys don't. This guy does, man. The way he flips his hips is incredible. And I'm going to be doing a film breakdown on him. Hopefully I can do it tomorrow, but we're actually like officially moving tomorrow, so it might come out on Wednesday, which kind of sucks. But most likely it'll be the day after. And trust me, you guys are going to want to watch that video because this guy's impressive, man. He's by far the most impressive pick that I think the Raiders have. Outside of Ashton Genty, right? Ashton Genty was 6th overall pick, though. But this guy is a guy, man. I think he's going to be a really, really good football player. Now, obviously, we are transitioning into a zone scheme based off of some of what we've done. It will be interesting to see how the Raiders kind of go forward as they do go forward. I think Darien Porter is going to be a starter fairly quickly, right? And again, it will be interesting with Ja'Cory Bennett as well, right? Because Bennett is like 5'10", right? So he's built way differently than how some of these other guys are. And he might not be 5'10", so don't quote me, but he is on the shorter side relative to Darien Porter and to Cameron Richardson, Eric Stokes, right? And some of the guys that we brought in that are like 6'2" and taller, right? Darien Porter fits that as opposed to Bennett kind of doesn't fit that. So we'll see what ends up happening. The Raiders did take 2 offensive linemen in rounds 3, pick 98, pick 99, back-to-back picks. I personally really, really like these picks. But we will be honest about some of these picks as well, right? Like, I don't think they're 100% guaranteed not to bust out, right? That's not what these picks are, right? But I do like the value. So pick 98, pick 99. Pete Carroll has already told us, right, in the presser that Caleb Rogers is going to end up being an interior offensive lineman on day 1, and Charles Grant will be developed as an offensive tackle on day 1. Now, the thing with Charles Grant is his tape is kind of interesting, right? And we'll just start with Grant first because he's the guy that I think is going to play tackle. So this guy's 6'5", 34 3/4 inch arms. From a size profile, this guy has it, right? Like, there's no issue on tape with the size. The thing is because he played at William & Mary, things look kind of off at sometimes. And I think one of the things I noticed with his tape is he was so quick out of his stance, so explosive that the technique just looked weird because everybody else was so slow out of their stance, right? And the thing is if Charles Grant went to the Senior Bowl and he had a good Senior Bowl, he may have been a first-round pick. He literally could have been. And you see the quickness and the movement on tape. And I think Charles Grant went to a pro day. I forget what pro day it was. It wasn't the William & Mary pro day. And this was actually the year before the final year he played in college. He went to a pro day, and I think it was either the 3-cone drill or it might have been the 20-yard shuttle. He ran one of those, and the numbers were sent to scouts, and that's kind of what put him on the radar of a lot of NFL teams. But this guy had a 20-yard shuttle. Could have been the 3-cone drill. One of those drills, this guy was faster than, like, Jamar Chase, right? Like, he measured faster. in that drill. People were like, that's absolutely incredible for an offensive tackle to be able to do that. The only other guys that have gotten close to this guy's numbers are guys like, I think like Lane Johnson was one, and then I think Penei Sewell was the other. And Charles Grant's right there with them. And now that's not tape, right? That's like athletic testing. But the tape's pretty good as well, right? He's strong, he's physical, he dominates people on tape. Obviously, as it gets in the NFL, I think that dominance will kind of, simmer down a little bit, right? It's not Jackson Powers Johnson. That's not the type of dominance that this guy will have. But I do think that the fact that he's so fast, he's so quick, he's so explosive, I think he'll translate really well to the Raiders, especially the Chip Kelly scheme. But I do think he has to develop. And I do think that if the Raiders started this guy like day one, I think it'd be a mistake. Now, just kind of taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture of things. There's a chance Colt Miller is not going to be with the Raiders as we go forward. There's a chance that Charles Grant is the Colt Miller replacement. I find that hard to believe. I think Colt Miller is a really, really, really good offensive tackle. He's worth the money. I think Charles Grant would be the developmental guy to replace DJ Glaze. I think that just makes a lot more sense. DJ Glaze is not built for a wide zone scheme. Remember, when you're running that wide zone scheme, Colt Miller is built for that, right? He's very fast, very quick. DJ Glaze is on the slower side. So to me, I would think the fact that the Raiders took him in the third round, 35th overall pick in the third round, right? Pick 99. I would think Charles Grant is the replacement more so for DJ Glaze and not for Colt Miller. And we'll find that out in camp, right? I'm sure he'll probably be playing the swing tackle role, right? Both sides, learning both sides. But I think they're going to develop him at right tackle. I think there's a chance he'll be the number 2, maybe even number 3 behind Dalton Wagner just to start it without crowning it. I think he'll be the guy to replace DJ Glaze, right? I'm not sold on Glaze. We'll see if Glaze can actually prove himself this season. But remember, I was not high on Thayer Munford. Thayer Munford got replaced super quickly. Now, Glaze has shown more upside than Thayer Munford. He's faster than Thayer Munford, but I just don't think he's fast enough, right? And you definitely saw that on his tape, which I did a film breakdown of that a couple weeks back. There's a video I added some tape on. I think Charles Grant will be a good football player. We'll see how he kind of develops. I don't think he's a day one instant superstar like Jackson Powers Johnson. But I think if Charles Grant does develop, he can be a really, really good football player. And I think he can be a superstar tackle, right, if he develops. But development is a real thing with Charles Grant. Caleb Rogers, I think, is already a better football player today than Charles Grant is. But I think Charles Grant's upside's a lot higher. And I also think Caleb Rogers will be a really, really good guard. He's a guy that's just super explosive, super fast. One of the fastest players you will see on tape. And now you can see why his athletic score is first among offensive linemen. You see why he has that 91 score. It's there, man. Like, you can definitely see that on tape. This guy's athletic score, you put the tape on with this guy, he is fast, he's explosive, he's out of there. He's, cutting linebackers off. He's getting in front of people. He's taking the proper angles you have to take as an offensive lineman. To me, Caleb Rogers is going to be a good offensive lineman. Now, is he bust-proof? It's debatable, right? I probably would not. If I was the one picking at that point, I probably would have taken Jalen Rivers over Caleb Rogers. Jalen Rivers ended up going to the Dolphins, I think. I think the Dolphins were the team that took him. I think Jalen Rivers is also built for power more so than zone. So I understand why the Raiders went with a guy that fits their scheme more. That part of it makes sense. But I do think Jalen Rivers is the better player, right? And I do think he'll be the better offensive lineman 5 years into the future. Now, we'll come back and we'll check that out in 5 years. But I do think Caleb Rogers can be a really, really good offensive lineman. Is he bust-proof? I would say yes. I think he is bust-proof. Because at the very, very minimum, you're going to have a guy that's a starting guard. And this isn't Dylan Parham, right? Like, Dylan Parham, to me, is not a starting guard. Dylan Parham should probably be replaced. And the Raiders are making those moves, right? Like Alex Kappa, Caleb Rogers. Those are 2 new interior offensive linemen you're bringing in. That's to replace Dylan Parham, right? Dylan Parham, unless he could show himself, which I do think this scheme fits him better. So hopefully he's able to get that. Hopefully Dylan Parham starts this year. Caleb Rogers, the other guy. Hopefully those 2 guys start, and then hopefully Dylan Parham shows why he was a 3rd-round pick. But I don't know if he will, right? He's had multiple years to prove himself. He really hasn't. Caleb Rogers, I think, is bust proof, right? I think at the very, very least, he's like as good as Dylan Parham. He'll fit the scheme, obviously, but I think he'll be better than Dylan Parham, in my opinion, based off of watching his tape. He does struggle on tape, is not perfect, right? He will have losing reps. He's not the strongest player, right? And that's the one thing you will see. And that is the one thing that does kind of concern me sometimes with him. He's not super, super strong, right? Now, he's not like Cody White here. He's not like that, right? Where, like, you're going to just get bull rushed. He will have some ability to anchor, but again, it's not perfect. Charles Grant's a much, much, much stronger, not even close, in terms of where their strength is, right? But it will be interesting to see how these guys kind of develop with the Raiders. I do like the two guys, right? I'm not going to lie to you guys. I like both of the guards that the Raiders took, or both of the offensive linemen we took. We'll see what position these guys end up playing. I think Rogers will be a guard. I think Grant will develop as a tackle, but also do realize that if DJ Glaze proves himself this year, then at that point, Charles Grant's not going to be the starting tackle. It'll be Glaze and Miller. And then where does Charles Grant play? Does he go to the inside? Does he replace Dylan Parham potentially in year 2? Right? And I think as a guard, he can be a really, really good guard as well. I think he'll be an elite guard at the very, very minimum, right? Again, he has to develop just a little bit. And the development is the technique, not like he has to get stronger or the game has to slow down. He just needs to develop the technique, right? So that's going to be a big part of that for both of those guys to kind of get better. Let's get into the fourth round pick, right? The 6th overall pick in the 4th round. The guy that a lot of people are saying is going to replace Trey Tucker. And I always want to, I want to kind of say this. At what point does having one fast guy replace another guy that's fast? Why can't 2 fast guys be out there at the same time? Why could we not have Dante Thornton Jr. develop and then Trey Tucker develop, right? Take that next step as well. Why could those 2 guys not be our wide receivers on the outsides with Jack Besh on the inside, Brock Bowers at tight end? Why could those 4 guys not be the guys for the Raiders? Of course, that's assuming not this year, but the year after, that Jacoby Myers isn't here, right? Jacoby Myers is going to be in his final year. I almost feel like the Raiders recognize that, hey, from a salary cap perspective, we might not be able to pay Jacoby Myers. Jack Besh kind of reminds me of Jacoby Myers as well, right? When I watch his tape, it's kind of similar. Dante Thornton, on the other hand, is fast, man. This guy's very, very fast. Now, he's raw, right? I will say he's raw. The one thing I will say with Tennessee that they did right is Thornton only had 35 targets, right? So a lot of his targets were like slant routes, and it was built off of like play action, or it was built off of like their heavy zone or run scheme that they had, right? And oftentimes, like, he would just beat that one corner, catch it across the middle, and he's gone. And he had a lot of those plays, like 70, 80, 90-yard touchdowns. He had over 600 yards on 35 freaking targets. That's ridiculous to me. Right? Was it 35 catches? It might have been 35 catches. Actually, I think it's just 35 targets. Don't quote me on that, but the guy has a really, really, really solid athletic profile. I won't get too much into the Thornton pick, but I do actually like this one. Right? Again, for as critical as I will be with the Jack Besh pick, I do, I love the Ashton Genty pick. Love the Darien Porter pick. I think these 2 picks are very solid. Obviously, I love the Charles Grant pick. I really like the Thornton pick as well, right? There's not much to add to that. I think he's a good wide receiver. And let's just wrap it up, man. Let's just get into some of the late round guys. We'll start with the D tackle that we took first here, Tonka Hemingway. He's not a late round guy, right? I think 4th round is the last round that you can truly, truly, truly criticize, right? Once you get from pick 6, around 6 through 7, it's kind of up in the air, right? But I'm not huge on some of the guys we took as well, but Tonka Hemingway is definitely an interesting player, right? This is a guy that is athletic as a defensive tackle. He could play the 1 technique if you really wanted him to. He could play the 3 technique. He isn't a great run defender, though, and that's something we do have to realize. I saw multiple plays on tape with this guy where he was not able to anchor down against the run, right? And I do think that with a guy like Tonka Hemingway, you are kind of banking on this guy to watch Christian Wilkins, to watch Adam Butler, and to develop what those guys are kind of doing. And I actually like this pick. I'm not in love with the pick, right? I do think there were some other defensive linemen that were better. Ty Robinson, I think, is a lot better, right? It's not close. Ty Robinson's going to be I think he's going to be a top 15 defensive tackle if he develops right. Hemingway, I don't know who was picked first. Robinson could have already been picked, but I think Hemingway is another guy who has potential, right? He has a lot of potential. He has good movement, and I will say that movement generally is what translates for defensive tackles. If you move well, you're going to be a good defensive tackle as long as you kind of start to learn the hands. You learn the little techniques. You pull with one hand, you swim over the top, you push with one hand a little bit before you maybe jump outside or whatever, right? I think the Raiders draft this guy because they want him to basically learn from Christian Wilkins and Adam Butler. And I think he's the Adam Butler replacement, right? I think that's the only natural thing that kind of makes sense. I think he eventually replaces Butler. We'll see what ends up happening, right? But he was a fourth round pick, which to me is still a very, very high pick, right? You have to be able to have meaningful snaps if you're in the fourth round. And I'll give you guys just a couple examples. Milton Williams was I think he was a late third round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles like 5 years ago. He's one of the highest paid D tackles now. Osa Odigizua was a third round pick with the Cowboys 4 or 5 years ago. He is one of the highest paid D tackles now, right? Taking a guy in the third or fourth round, those are guys that could develop into starting caliber players, right? So there's no excuse for Hemingway. He has to develop and be a productive player one day down the line, right? He gets 2, 3, 4 years to develop. He definitely does have potential. We'll see. Today, I wouldn't say that he's like nowhere near, even a guy like Pebbles, right? It's not like the Ravens drafted. Now, Pebbles is like 6 feet, so I understand if you don't want to draft a guy that's 6 feet. 100% understandable. I'm talking purely just comparison. Pebbles' pass rush technique is arguably the best among the D tackles in this class. Hemingway is nowhere near that, right? He's like, I don't even think he has the pass rush technique of Mason Graham. Mason Graham's pass rush technique sucks, right? So we'll see what this guy can develop into. I don't love the pick. I don't hate it. This is just, let's see how he develops. Straight up, right? But I will say this. Usually, if you don't flash great hands early on, you're not going to have success. And we saw this with Byron Young, who never had good hands, right? He was a terrible defensive tackle. I criticized it like crazy from day one. And we released him real quick. He got picked up by the Eagles. I think they've already released him as well. He's just not a good pick, right? And we'll see if Hemingway can develop. But right now, he doesn't have. He has okay pass rush moves, right? Like he'll spin, he'll swipe, but it just needs to be more consistent. He just needs to do a little bit better, and then he just has to develop, right? So we'll see what he can kind of do. And then the next defensive tackle we took, now this was in the 6th round, so I'm not going to overly criticize this, but I don't think this guy's really a good football player right now. I understand how some people feel about, and I don't even know how to say his name. I should probably looked into this. JJ Pigu, I think that's how you say it. I'm probably butchering the name. I usually butcher names, but I'm not a fan of this pick. And I know, people are like, hey, this guy can play fullback. He'll play wildcat as a quarterback. He's not playing quarterback in the NFL. He's not taking any snaps in the NFL. I'd be surprised if that ever happened. He might play fullback. Understandably, he probably could. But I don't like the pick because he's not a good run defender and he doesn't have pass rush technique, right? He doesn't do any of that. And from a size profile, with Ole Miss, this guy played on the edge. This guy played as a 4-eye, as a 3 technique. This guy played in the 1 technique. He played nose. This guy played everywhere for Ole Miss, right? And he didn't flash at any of those positions. Like, he wasn't a star at anything, right? Now, he had a couple of plays. He did some good things, but generally speaking, I just didn't see it from him. But he was a 6th round pick, so the Raiders obviously think there's something they can develop, and maybe they pulled out all of his snaps at the 3 technique, and they said, we think he has potential there. So, best case scenario, he develops into something, but it was a 6th round pick, so I'm not going to be overly critical. We took 2 quarterbacks. Of course, Tommy Millette out of Montana State is going to most likely be a wide receiver. I don't want to get too much into this one. Montana State, former quarterback, athletic, very, very, very solid movement skills. He's explosive, right? There's not much to say about this. It's a late round pick, right? End of the 6th round. We'll see what he can kind of develop into. I do think it's like a Hunter Renfrow type of pick, but he's faster than Hunter Renfrow. So again, he's smart, right? So it's not a bad pick given where he got picked. We'll see what he can develop into. Cam Miller's a pick that I personally like. You had a couple of quarterbacks that have come out of NDSU. Neither have really worked out. Carson Wentz was probably the closest to actually being a good quarterback. He had that 1 year with the Eagles where they won the Super Bowl. He ended up getting hurt, but Carson Wentz had that season. Trey Lance never really worked out. But luckily for the Raiders, we didn't take the NDSU quarterback in the first round like the other teams. We took this guy in the 6th round, end of the 6th round, right? We'll see what he can develop into, right? The Raiders are adding explosive players on the offense, right? And Cam Miller's an explosive player as well. Geno Smith today is going to put it all together, right? But in 2 or 3 years, Cam Miller could be that guy for the Raiders, right? Where he may never develop as like, hey, I'm a top 5 quarterback in terms of ball placement and accuracy. But he could, on any given play, take off running and pick up 50 yards. He has a really good arm in terms of pushing the ball 30, 40, 50, 60 yards downfield. Maybe, Dante Thornton develops and the Raiders have this explosive offense where they're just pushing the ball downfield, right? Or maybe it's just a backup quarterback and that's the end of that, right? Not going to be overly critical of a 6th round pick. I have strong opinions about this one. 7th round pick, 6th overall pick. Love the pick, man. Absolutely love this pick. Cody Lindenberg, to me, huge upside as a linebacker. I actually thought this guy would be like a 2nd or 3rd round pick coming in, right? And that's purely from watching his tape. This guy's super smart, right? Like, he sees things, he sniffs it out, and he attacks. More than that, this guy takes away passing lanes, right? Like, he's just a smart player. And he's built really, really well, right? 6'2", 32 and 3/4 inch arms, 236 pounds. He's pretty athletic for the size that he has. I absolutely love this pick. Lance Zierlein, I don't know if they changed this right here, right? I find this hard to believe that he had a priority free agent grade on this guy. But you can see, like, this guy, one of his strengths is that he's instinctive with the feel for misdirection. He recognizes blocking schemes and fits runs accordingly. That's a fact. That's 100% what he does right there, right? Now, I do also agree that one of the weaknesses is he's a below average knee bend and block take on. So this guy's not going to run through and block. He's the type to swipe and get around and block. So with that, he's smart. He gets into run fits and he does everything you want out of a guy as a linebacker, but he's also not the type to run through a guy. He's not the type to, lay someone out. Like, he's not Devin White. He's the opposite of Devin White. But he is super smart, and I will say that, in the NFL, if you're drafting linebackers, your linebackers don't have to be like super, super, super physical, right? You can get linebackers that can come in 3, 4, 5 years, give you a good 3, 4, 5 years. They know the scheme, they understand it. At the end of the day, the NFL's not, you don't, if there's 70 plays in the NFL where you're a defense, you play 70 plays. All 70 plays don't actually even matter, right? What matters is 3rd downs, right? 3rd and 2, are you able to make that play, right? That's literally it. That's what matters the most in the NFL. 1st and 2nd down just don't matter as much. And with a guy like Cody Lindenberg, if it's 3rd and 8 and he's lined up against the linebacker or against the tight end, can he take away that passing lane, right? If it's 3rd and 2 and he has to tackle someone, he might not do that. But I think it's a good pick. I like it. I think he has upside. Overall, if you're telling me what's the grade on this, you can give it an A-, B+. I think the Ashton Genty picks, some of the other 3rd round, I love the 3rd round picks, love the Ashton. I question the Jack Bech pick, right? But we will see how it develops. I do think John Spytek did an overall pretty decent job. I do wish that he got more value from Tonka Hemingway downwards, right? I'm not huge on a lot of those guys that they took, minus the linebacker out of Minnesota. We'll see how it develops, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't take anything I say too personal. At the end of the day, I can't tell you guys I love every pick going forward. It's just not something I can do, right? If I feel a certain type of way, I'm going to tell you guys I feel a certain type of way. And I might be wrong, right? I am wrong a lot, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.